There's this guy Paris, and like he's cute and all, but don't let his looks deceive you. Paris is the prince of Troy and the son of Priam, and he's in love with Helen. But anyway, I hate him, but that's not important. Saves Helen from Menelaus, but I don't think that's very true. This makes Menelaus very angry. Menelaus is the king of Sparta and is married to Helen, and he's the brother of Agamemnon. So when he finds out that Helen has been taken, he goes to his brother Agamemnon, who is the king of Greece. Menelaus is all like, Helen's been kidnapped by this dude Paris from Troy and we need to start a war to get her back. So then Agamemnon is all, I mean, sure. At the same time, we can like conquer Troy, so like, dope, let's do it. But then they're like, wait, what if we need Achilles? Because he can help us out. But also he's like so unpredictable, so something bad could happen. Then Agamemnon is, but like we really need him because we want to win. Achilles is a great warrior of Greece, and in this movie he's played by Brad Pitt, and just like look at him. Like, look at him. Okay, anyway, so switch to Troy. Paris and Hector are going back to Troy. Hector is Paris's brother. Okay, so the Greeks sail their boats to Troy and storm the beach and blah blah blah, fight, whatever. So Achilles gets this girlfriend after they fight, and she's like a prize, I guess. She's a Trojan, and she's the cousin of Paris and Hector. But then Agamemnon steals her and is like, she's mine now, I'm the king, I can do whatever I want. And Achilles is like, yeah, no. And then like they get into this like whole argument. Okay, so later there's this big meeting in Troy, and everyone's trying to figure out like what to do and like how to fight the Greeks. Paris says, well, it's my fault, which, I mean, it is. And I should just fight Menelaus, and whoever wins like gets to keep Helen, and like that's it. And then Priam and Hector are like, how about not? Like, that's not a great idea. But then Paris is like, no, I think we really should, and it happens anyway. Okay, so the next day, the whole Greek army shows up to Troy, and it looks like this. Menelaus steps forward and goes to Paris, and then they fight. And Menelaus is about to win and kill Paris, but then Paris like runs away. And in the book, the Iliad, Paris actually is like whisked away and ends up in his room with Helen. So as Menelaus is about to kill Paris, then he runs away. Hector then kills Menelaus, but wait, in the actual story, Menelaus does not get killed by Hector. Hector doesn't kill him. Menelaus actually takes Helen home, and they like live a long life. And then in the Odyssey, Helen is like talking to Telemachus and is like, oh yeah, the Trojan War was just like a little misunderstanding. And like, no. Okay, so anyway, after this all happens, is when the war like really starts. So everyone starts like charging at each other, but guess who wasn't there? Achilles just decided, yeah, I'm not going, I'm just gonna stay in my like little boat hut, whatever. So then Patroclus, Achilles' cousin, but really it's more like Achilles' boyfriend, but in the movie it's most likely they just said it was his cousin. So Patroclus wears Achilles' armor to the fight, and they're like fighting and everything. And then Hector really wants to kill Achilles, because earlier in the beginning, when they first started fighting Troy, he had the chance to fight him, but Achilles was like, no, let's not do this here. Let's do it where people can see us so that I'll be remembered for killing you. So Hector sees Patroclus in Achilles' armor, is like, oh, I recognize that armor, that must be Achilles. So then he fights him and kills him, and then takes off his helmet and is like, wait, that's not Achilles. And then one of the Greeks, so everyone stops fighting when they are fighting because they want to watch and see what happens. And then one of the Greeks afterwards, once Patroclus dies, like the whole thing is like over for now. And then a Greek comes by and tells Hector and is like, you just made a mistake, that was Achilles' cousin. Saying like, oh, you better watch out, like Achilles is gonna come fight you now. And like he's made a bad mistake. Achilles finds out that Patroclus has been killed and is enraged and angry. And so meanwhile, Hector is back at home with his wife and his baby, and like he knows that the next day Achilles is gonna come and fight him, and he knows that chances are he's gonna die. The next day Achilles shows up to Troy and is screaming Hector, Hector, Hector over and over again until Hector finally comes down to the gates and they open and he comes out. And then Achilles takes off his helmet and looks at Hector and says, now you know who you're fighting. Like, kind of like mockingly, like, last time you didn't know you were fighting and made a bad mistake and now you're like stuck here and like you're gonna die. So then they fight and all this stuff happens. And during the fight, Hector trips on a rock and Achilles looks at him and says, get up, Prince of Troy, I will not let a stone take my glory. Basically, he's saying, I'm not gonna kill you while you've fallen because I don't want the stone to be remembered for like the final thing that like made you die. I want to be remembered for killing you. So then they fight more and Achilles kills him, and then he ties him to the back of his like horse and chariot and drags him around the walls of Troy many times to disfigure him so that in like the afterworld he will be completely disfigured. Later that night, Priam, the king of Troy and Hector's father, sneaks out of Troy and into where all the Greeks' ships are ported and goes and talks to Achilles. And Achilles could have killed him if he really wanted to, but it would not have been the honorable thing to do, so he didn't, and he respects Priam's request to have his son back and gives him back, and then says, I understand what you're going through because I went through the same thing with my cousin Patroclus. We'll give you like 13 or so days of rest. So then Agamemnon finds out that Achilles has made this promise and is completely upset and angry and enraged. So a couple days go by, and then one of these days they're all like sitting around the fire, and in the movie Odysseus sees one of his men like carving a little horse out of wood, and he gets an idea. So this didn't actually happen in the Iliad, but it's put in the movie anyway. So Odysseus is the king of Ithaca and is a general in the Greek army. So Odysseus has the idea for the Trojan horse, and it looks like this. Okay, so the next day they make it look like they've left, and they've left all these dead bodies behind with markings to make it look like they're dealing with the plague and they just want to go home. And then they leave a huge horse made out of like pieces of boat. So then the Trojans come down and are like, oh, we like won, I guess. And they're like, oh, we better take this. Then Priam is like, oh, well, it's probably just a sign because they want good luck on their journey home, and it's like an offering to Poseidon, and like, we should take it, like, it's good. Paris is like, no, you should leave it here, it's probably not good. But Priam's like, no, we'll just take it anyway. Trojans bring the horse back into the city walls and celebrate, and they're like, yay, we won, the war's over. But little did they know that inside of this prize or gift that they've gotten is actually a handful of Greek soldiers. As night falls, they all sneak out of the horse and start stabbing and killing whatever Trojan they can see around them. And they start like setting things on fire. Then Odysseus runs up to the top of like the walls and puts up a torch to signal to the rest of the army that they're inside, and that then thousands and thousands of Greek soldiers run up the hill as Odysseus opens the gates into Troy. So meanwhile, all of the Greeks are like killing Trojans and setting things on fire. Achilles is running around looking for his girlfriend, and so she was like with all of the royalty at the time, but she's looking for Achilles too. So as she's running around and looking for him, Agamemnon actually finds her and is like, and grabs her and is holding on to her and this doesn't actually happen. It's just probably added into the movie for dramatic effect. But she stabs Agamemnon in the neck right here. He dies, but this does not actually happen in the book. He actually goes home to his wife, and she ends up killing him because he's been gone for so long. Okay, so back to Helen. Helen escapes through like an underground tunnel, and right as Paris is leaving to go and find like Achilles and his cousin, he gives the sword of Troy to a kid, and supposedly that kid goes and starts Rome. But like that's how we really remember it and how it's been told to us. But more likely it's just a story Caesar made up. So Achilles and his girlfriend are reunited, and they like hug and kiss and they're all happy and whatever. But then Paris comes up with his bow and arrow. He shoots him in the heel, and then he also shoots him in the chest a couple times. So like breaks off the arrows that Paris keeps shooting him with. But then he falls to the ground, and because he's broken off the arrows, all you can see is like the arrow in his heel. Like that's why he's remembered. As this is happening in the movie, his girlfriend is like screaming and she's like upset, and she's like, no, Paris, stop. But probably in real life she was probably being like saved by Paris. Okay, so in the end of the movie, Helen escapes and Agamemnon and Menelaus are dead, but in actual fact Helen does not escape. Helen goes home with Menelaus, who's not dead, and Agamemnon's not dead. Menelaus and Helen actually live together until Menelaus dies of old age, and Agamemnon goes home and is killed by his wife. Jake, stop! Jake, stop! Jake!